Hi everyone, my name is Lori, my nickname is Reenie, and this is Reenie Bobini Creations. If it's the first time you stop by to visit my channel, I'd like to offer you a very warm welcome. And to my subscribers, I'm so glad you're back. I hope you love what I have going on for you today. So today we're going to do these little bunny plaques. I think they turned out super cute. They were a way to use up some of the things, the broken bits and pieces in my stash, instead of throwing them out, and I'm really pleased with the way that it turns out, and I really hope you love it too. So please don't forget to subscribe, give me a like if you enjoy it, and turn on the notifications. I'm gonna stop yakking and we'll get on with the crafting. Alright guys, so this is kind of, I want to say it's a Pinterest inspired. It looks nothing like what Pinterest did, not even close, but the technique that I will show you will be the same when we're done. So I would just want to incorporate it in to probably my last little Easter craft here. Maybe one more. I'll see how time goes. Anyways, I thought this, for what I'm making, I wanted to use up some things in my stash. So these are those little bunnies. I used them in some of the other ones, and they come from the Dollarama, and they're like the little eggs, but they're bunnies. So I just took them apart, and these were just leftovers from other projects. And some of them are kind of broken and they didn't do everything I wanted them to do, and so I thought this would be a good place to kind of use them up, and it would work well with what I'm doing. So I am going to use the 2 glue method for this because I want to spray paint it. And guys, I live in Alberta and it's so lovely out today, and then we're supposed to get snow for the whole rest of the week, and it's like the end of March. That's so depressing. It's so depressing. So anyways, because I have to, spray paint today, because otherwise I won't get an opportunity for a while, I am going to use the 2 glue method. So I'm just going to start with using my E6000, and then I'll find some spots where I can put my hot glue. Oh yeah, I'm going to need my pliers for this, aren't I? I wipe this off every time and I still always have to go get my pliers for it. One moment. All right, we got her now. And if there is a little, like, you know how sometimes it'll squeeze under and show, I'm not going to worry about it on this craft. In fact, it might kind of just work with the look we're going for. So I'm not too concerned about that. So now I'm just going to put some hot glue as well. To hold it in place so I can take it outside and spray paint it. Okay. And then I'll do the same with this. And you can see these clay pieces, I got dollar store clay. Don't do that. It didn't work. I know some people have had good success with it. I just found mine broke and cracked, but this is one of those projects where if it's cracked and broken, it's actually gonna help with the look. There we go. And I think for the clay pieces, I think these will stick on just fine with some hot glue. I'm not gonna worry about the 2. It was just the bunnies that I was more concerned with. So now I'm going to take them outside and give them, as I mentioned, a spray paint. Now you can use whatever color works in your world. But I will tell you what the technique is, because you will want it to be not white. I mean, I guess you could do white and then use a different color for the rest of the technique. But I'm going to do, they actually use white wax. I'm just going to use white acrylic and almost like a dry brush on there. but you'll see here when we're done. So I've got this paint that I thought would look really good with the plan here. So I'm going to take it outside. I'll probably give it a couple of coats. We'll just see. Sometimes one coat is good with this, with the primer, but just to make sure on the brown bunnies. And once they're all dried up, we'll come back in and we'll go on to the next step. So they're all dry now, and I am going to tell you, I didn't realize when I got this that this wasn't the matte or the chalk sort of finish. So I'm glad I spray painted it though, because it could get in all the cracks. But then in the end, I did give it a quick coat of my chalk paint in the same color, just because I didn't want it to be all shiny and all the rest. So that's going to work out just fine. But I just wanted to let you know that. And if you're using, I mean, you can paint them just straight up with chalk paint. But because of all the little creases, I did want to use the spray paint, and the two system kind of worked. So now the next thing we're going to do is, this is just the white paint from Dollarama. And I'm just going to take my brush, and this is fairly soft, this brush. And we're going to do, now you can use wax on this, white wax. I don't have any, and so I'm going to use my white paint. I've dried my brush out pretty well. It's pretty dry. And you're going to need a piece of, you can use paper towel. My blue stuff is a bit thicker than I need for it, so I'm going to grab a napkin, which I thought I had put near me. Oh my gosh, the last while, guys. I'm sure my head is not screwed on straight. One moment. Okay, so when I decoupage napkins, I always keep the sneaky layers for just these types of projects. So what I'm going to do, now you'll see when I sanded this, I sanded it very lightly because I want those imperfections to show, and this is why. So we're going to paint it on, and then we're going to take it back off. And you can take as much or as little off as you want. So if I want it to be a little bit more than that, I'll just get my napkin wet, squeeze out the excess, and you can take more off, but you still get that look. So I'm going to do that. And this is kind of the opposite of a dry brush. So it works kind of like a dry brush, but instead of brushing the tops, it's going to get in the cracks and crevices. And you're going to wipe that off, if that makes sense. So, and I kind of think I took too much water off my brush. I don't want it wet, but I do need a little bit so it does get in those cracks and crevices. And the soft brush helps to get down in there. Now I found using this brush, if you're going to paint, it will work, but because it's so soft, it leaves too many swirly marks. That's why I didn't. That's why I used the spray paint to start. So now again, I'm just gonna take it off as much or as little as I want. I think a baby wipe would work really well for this too. I don't have any at the moment, so we're doing this, but if you have baby wipes, I think this would be a perfect time for those as well. And then we're just sort of going to blend, and I'll do a little more blending when we've got all the details done as well. And I do want it to kind of be around, like, almost the opposite of shading, I guess, around the base of all of my embellishments. Just gonna go back in, and we can always go back in if we want it to be a little darker. If we get too much white, we can go back in with that teal. And if it's spray paint that you did use and you just are using the spray paint, you can spray a little bit into a container. Oops. we will fix that because that was why I was using these, to use up my broken bits and pieces. So that's gonna get fixed. Let me turn on my glue gun here. So we will just fix that up. I was totally trying to use up my broken ones because I think they're still pretty, especially when you're doing something that's supposed to look rustic and aged and all the rest. So I saved those broken bits and pieces for projects just like this. So now with our bunny, we're going to go in and do the same thing. Now all this lovely white is going to stay more in the texture. So I'm going to set him aside and let him dry a little bit more. Because we're going to come in with the burnt umber and really age this too. So we're kind of going to do a couple of techniques. So I'm going to set that aside and I'll work on him. Okay, so they're pretty dry now, and so we're going to go in and do some actual dry brushing now. So I've got my burnt umber from the Dollarama. I'm going to go in with a smaller brush this time. I might use a bigger one later on in the project, but I'm going to take most of my paint off. And then we're just going to kind of go over and around wherever we kind of want to dirty it up a little bit. Corners, I'll probably do some on the sides. And rather than trying to hide the imperfections and the cracks like you see here, I'm going to emphasize them. I want it to look like it's seen better days, and wherever you would think that some dirt might settle on the cracked bits, that's where I'm going to put it. I thought I got all my glue bits off, but I keep finding them on this one. I think they sort of blended in when it was all painted one color, and now I keep seeing them. Anyways, I'll take my hot air gun later. So wherever we've got like a crack or an imperfection, I'm going to bring that out. And now I am going to get a bit of a bigger brush and do a little more dry brushing around the edges, on the sides, and just rustic it up really good. So I actually decided to go with a piece of foam. I'm just going to cut it down a little bit. And I'm not even going to get it wet. We're just going to kind of do our edges. there, and I'm pretty happy with that. So that's kind of where we're at here. And I may just, once it's dried again, good and dry, I may go over it just a couple more times. So we'll do that to the other one as well here. Okay, so I am now going to get the sponge just a bit wet and squeeze it out. And so now that it's a bit wetter, now I'm going to kind of go over the whole, mostly the sides. I'm not going to do a whole lot on the top, maybe a few spots. I'll do the same on this one, just down the sides mostly. Okay, so there's our two little plaques, and I thought we need hangers for them still, but we also are going to have these little hearts that I got from Dollarama hanging off the bottom of them. But again, I want to dirty them up just a little bit, so I'm going to take that same sponge, just kind of go around the edges. We're going to hang those off the bottom, and I'm not sure I like those ribbons. I might change them out, so we'll see in just a minute here. So I'm going to grab a few different things here so we can create our hangers and our little hangers for our hearts, and I'll be back to you. Okay, so I did take that little bit of lace off. I'll throw it in my stash. I'm sure I'll use it somewhere at some point. And I didn't find any ribbon that I actually like to go with this in my stash, which is weird because I swear I'm a ribbon junkie. I need a support group. But anyway, but what I did find was these little flowers. They came like lace or ribbon. So I'm going to use those. And as soon as I saw them, I knew that's what I wanted to do. I'm just going to trim them off a bit here. And we are going to dirty them up just a little bit too, just to make them sort of stand out a bit. So I'm not even going to get any new paint, I don't think. I'm just going to go into my dry brush paint. And I'm just going to go around the edges a bit. Just so they're not quite so stark white and they kind of blend in with what our feel here, that, you know, it's old and a little bit dirty and been around a bit, so. There we go. And now I'm not going to glue them on until I get these placed where I'd like them, so that I can stick something through the hole without too much trouble. It'll probably be fine, but I don't want to make it any more difficult on myself than I need to. So the next step is this wire I got, and I got it from the gardening section of Dollarama, and it was very inexpensive, and I've had it forever. Like, it lasts forever. And I decided I wanted that on the top, and I haven't quite decided how I'm going to hang these. We'll see. So in order to do that, I need my trusty cutters. I'm going to decide about how long I want it, and I'm going to give it some extra because I want to put some twirls in there. So I'm going to cut myself a a fairly generous piece, and it is a little bit difficult to cut, but it's not too bad, as you can see. And then I'm just going to take my paintbrush and I'm going to leave a flat spot, and then I'm going to start winding around my brush. And this does not need to be perfect in any way, shape, or form. And then we're going to put it on here. Now I think what I'm going to do for this, I'm not quite sure whether I want to staple it. My staple gun might be the best, and then hide it. I think that is what we'll do with this one. So I'll do my next piece. Same kind of thing, take a bit more than I think I need. Cut it off. I'm going to do my little swirls a bit different here. I think I might do these a little bit closer maybe. And this is quite a thick wire, but it's still fairly easy to bend. Okay, let's take it out. And same thing, we're gonna just do that, so I will go get my staple gun and we'll worry about hiding those staples after. So for this, I was thinking of using a piece of that. I don't think I'm going to. I think it will be too stiff and not really easy to get into the wood here. So we're gonna go with just a satin ribbon. So I will get that. We'll finish up all our bits and pieces. Okay, so we have our plan. So I am going to use my staple gun to staple our hanger. I just checked it on the other one just to make sure it was gonna work, and it did. So and then if it doesn't go in all the way, you can always use your little hammer and tap it in, and we're gonna hide that when we're done here. Same thing, just gonna hammer it in a bit. And you'll see it stays pretty good. Now you can bend the tip up, but I don't think mine's gonna go anywhere, so I'm not too concerned about it. So that's all done. So now the next thing we're going to do, I decided this looked a bit too new and shiny for the rest of it, and I wanted a way to hide these. Oh, I missed with my staple. Okay, let's fix that right now. Let's try that again, shall we? You'll see, like, oh, that one didn't stay. We'll tap that in better. The other ones have all stayed really good. I mean, I'm sure. And with the next thing we're going to do, that's going to help too. But I'm just gonna, there, that's better. Okay. So in order to rust things up a little bit on our thing, and in order to hide the staples, so I've got these little diamonds that were just in my stash, and we're going to make these look like rusty studs or some such thing, I guess. So I'm just going to put them aside. Now we're going to add a smidge of Mod Podge, and this one just came from the Dollarama. Oh, does it have a top on it? I have a top on it. It's brand new. Oh no. Come on. Okay, so we got our Mod Podge. We're gonna add some brown paint. Normally I would use the burnt umber, but I'm almost out and I'm not sure I'll have enough, so I'm going to use my other favorite one, which is espresso. Pour some of that in there. And then the trick that I like to use for rust is cinnamon. So I'm going to sprinkle some of the cinnamon in there. Actually, I'll probably take the top off and do it that way. All right, and then using my little brush here, get it a bit wet, I'm going to mix it together. And then on my little diamonds, I'm just gonna pat it on. Now I may come back in later with a bit of red or orange. We'll see. Sometimes when they dry, the color's fine and you don't need to worry about it. Oh, it stuck to me. And that's gonna hide the diamond that we don't actually want. And make it look all rusty. Oops. And we can come in and do another coat too if it needs it. So we'll see how they look once they're good and dry. Now because of the cinnamon and the Mod Podge, they do take a little bit to dry. So had I been thinking ahead of time, I probably would have done these and let them dry while we were doing the rest of the project, but I wasn't sure where I was going with it. So if you want to do this technique, not a bad idea to do it before you start doing some of the other things, so give it a good chance to dry. That one. And then I'm going to kind of just go in a few places on our hanger as well. So while those are drying, we're going to put our bottom part on. And I went back with the ribbon. I decided that was actually going to work, but not in the way that they had it. So I'm just going to feed the end through the little loop there. There we go. And then I'm going to use some hot glue just to glue it down in the middle here. And then because I did have the 4 little flowers, I dirtied the other ones up too. We're going to put one up and one down to hide our mess here. And then the other one just to hide the loop. And I think that will kind of pull the whole thing together. I'm quite happy with the way that looks. And of course we'll do that for both. And so as soon as my little diamonds are dry, we'll put that together and we'll finish it all up